An encounter with a homeless woman changed my life. I'm not sure what initially drew me to her. Maybe it was her matted, tangled grey hair, or the fingerless gloves that I was certain hadn't always been fingerless. They vaguely resembled my own, just with more unnecessary holes. Or maybe it was the way she shared the crumbs of her sandwich with the pigeons on the drizzly pavement. She had nothing, but still, she wanted to share. I didn't usually make a habit of sitting down with homeless people. I know how that sounds, but it wasn't a judgment thing. I was just busy, always rushing around. I was busy that day too, yet when I saw her, I sat. I didn't care that I missed the train, departing from only a few meters behind where she was pitched. In fact, I was almost glad to be missing it. Do you believe in fate? I didn't. Now, I'm not so sure. What's your name? The woman asked, smiling as she scattered a few more crumbs for the birds. I wondered how someone her age had ended up so down on her luck. The lines mapping her face, like the rings on wood of a tree, indicating that she was at least 60 or 70 years old. It's Sophie, I answered, rifling in my bag and handing her a spare bottle of water I carried for the train home. She swigged it back gratefully. Nice to meet you, Sophie. Do you want to talk about what you're avoiding going home to? I was taken aback. I just saw the woman and felt compelled to sit down. I was just being a decent human being. I told her as much. She laughed. I'm not a charity case, although I appreciate your concern, dear. I'm free, unlike you. What do you mean, unlike me? Well, what are you avoiding going home to? I felt a little spooked, to be honest. I didn't believe in psychics or supernatural phenomena, but the woman's insistence was difficult to ignore. And she was right. I didn't want to go home. I'd been anxious about it all day. I just couldn't work out why. I don't know, I answered, taking a small piece of bread that she passed to me so I could join her feeding the birds. We sat in silence for a few moments. Tramp! A young boy shouted as he rode his bike into the station and threw a puddle next to where we sat. The birds flew away in a panic, and my companion was coated in filthy rainwater. I tried to stand and confront him, but the woman grabbed my hand. Don't bother. He's the least of our concerns. Doesn't that make you angry? I asked. The homeless woman laughed again. What's the point of being angry? It doesn't feel good. Her words were simple, but they struck a chord with me. Her small talk felt poignant, like it was supposed to mean something. A personal message. Like me sitting down on that pavement had been fate. Sometimes you can't help being angry. No, she answered, her tone less carefree than before, as she turned to face me. Sometimes you can't help being angry. I can help it just fine. How? How do you stop that feeling? I begged, feeling a twinge of that rotten anger festering in the pit of my stomach. It felt spent, like it had already been unleashed and shriveled back into its hole. I didn't know why it was there, but it always was. I removed the source of anger from my life. I winced. I tried hard to rack my mind for the source of my anger. Where did that rotten pit come from? Was it something that could be removed? excreted like a kidney stone. Why was I putting so much weight behind the ramblings of a woman feeding the birds on the pavement? There is no source of my anger. Yes, there is, Sophie. What are you avoiding going home to? I found myself annoyed by her question. It was the third time she'd asked it, and the third time it made that rotten little pit of anger grow. I closed my eyes and thought of stepping off the train, making my way home, and what awaited me there. Who awaited me there? I'm avoiding my parents, I blurted, before I'd even come to terms with it myself. The woman was magnetic, forcing things out of me that I didn't know were there. Bingo. Took you long enough, Sophie. Has their behaviour become so normal to you that you've forgotten why they make you angry? She laughed again. This time, it was mocking, taunting me, just like they did. How do you know their behaviour makes me angry? The rotten little pit grew again, this time into a knot of putrid strings of emotion. Why couldn't I control it? Why wouldn't it just go away? I felt it all the time, and it terrified me. The fear of wondering what it might one day make me do. I thought you were a little more intelligent than that. Maybe I've given you too much credit, she teased. Stop speaking in riddles. You sound just like them. She was right. She did sound like them. A perfect impression of my mother, dressing me down, telling me I'm not good enough. On her wrinkle-covered face was a carbon copy of the expression my father pulled every time he told me what a disappointment I was. I felt it hit me deep and hurt. The strings became sprawling vines, growing inside of me. I felt scared, desperate, but mostly angry. Who are you? I begged, a tear rolling down my face. I thought you would have worked that out by now, too. Think about it, Sophie. Really, think about it. What are you avoiding going home to? My mind filled with little flashes. The last interaction I had with my parents, just that morning. Their bullying, their constant prodding, that rotten knot in my stomach that just kept growing, the knife in my hands, the blood. You already know, don't you? I answered, my heart palpitating as I realized exactly what I was avoiding. The consequences that I'd been running from, even in my own mind. It's okay, Sophie. You removed what made you angry from your life. I told you. I did the same. If you did, you're disgusting. I'm disgusting. This is all wrong. I scratched at my arms at the attempt to occupy my hands, to break flesh, to feel anything other than that twisted knot of anger. It didn't work. The old homeless woman was worse than my parents. She ignited that knot worse than they ever could. I remembered how hard I willed it to disappear as I plunged that knife deep into my mother's chest. How bad I hoped that it would end, stop that festering knot from ever returning. The woman looked me in the eyes and smiled. The smile made my skin crawl. I hated her, but I forced myself to look back. I looked at her, really looked at her. It took me a moment to notice, but eventually I recognized my own eyes staring back at me. Even shrouded in all those wrinkles, they were mine. I thought of the dead bodies of my parents, and the fate that awaited me for my actions. I realized that the woman lied. She wasn't free. She never had been. She was me, and she scared me more than anything else could. That same festering pit existed in her too. She'd run from it for years, hiding from the consequences of her actions, and she had the audacity to taunt me. She didn't say another word. She didn't have to. I only had one more question for her. For me. It's been nice to meet you, Sophie. What are you avoiding going home to? Thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. I really appreciate you guys, and I hope you're enjoying the content that you're helping me to create. I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye.